Well, this is where it all began. In 1851, a group from the New York Yacht Club sent a sailboat called America to England to race. These races were sponsored by the Royal Yacht Squadron. At the time, the Royal Yacht Squadron was the most important yacht club in England, and England was the world naval power. America won the race. It was a real David versus Goliath event, creating immense press all around the United States. And as a result, racing started in a broader sense all around the nation. On a side note, when the group brought the cup back to the New York Yacht Club, the club decided that they were going to rename the cup, and they named it America's Cup. It's now the most popular and most prestigious race in all of the world. More locally, sailboats were a common sight on Lake Winnebago. This three-mast schooner that was owned by Ed Stevens took flour from Neenah down to Fond du Lac and brought people and cargo back on a daily basis. The news records record sailboat racing taking place on Lake Winnebago as early as 1860, and by 1864 the Neenah Yacht Club was formed, and one of its key founders was Charles Doty, the son of James Doty, Wisconsin's territorial governor. In these early years, sandbaggers were by far the most commonly used sailboat on the lake. Sandbaggers derived their name because both the bags of sand and the crew could be moved back and forth for ballast on the boat. Sandbaggers were typically 25 feet or so. By the 1890s, sailing in Neenah had become a large spectator sport. News records speak of thousands of people going to watch the races, either on steamers or on shore with a picnic basket. In 1894, the Nottoway Yacht Club was formed in Neenah as a second club, really out of a displeasure with the direction that sailboat racing was taking. Some of its founders were James Kimberley, James Wright, and John Kimberley, and they founded it under four basic goals. One was to promote sailing and racing on Lake Winnebago, but also to define racing fleets as a single dimension and to establish a standard code of rules and signals, along with discouraging extravagant expenditures in yachts. It was those ideals that the one design fleet known as the Nottoway class was born. It was a 21-foot long cat yawl with about a 15.9 water line, and it was successfully competed on the lake for many years. In 1898, a rift between members of the Nottoway Club developed, and a large segment of the club broke away and went back to the Neenah Yacht Club. Some names of distinction in there were William Gilbert and Will Davis. But they came back together in 1905 and created the Neenah Nottoway Yacht Club from the two clubs joining. In that merger, they formed the new board that had Lyle Pinkerton, Will Davis, Frank Shattuck, John Sensenbrenner, and J.A. Kimberley as their members. The combined club retained the four founding goals of the Nottoway Club. In fact, the club retains these goals today.
We went down to Stilp. He was a purchasing agent at Kimberly-Clark, and it cost us $1 a piece, and we joined the yacht club. Important thing back in the late 40s and 50s is a lot of people joined then. They had the E fleet and an A fleet and a C boat fleet.
Well, my grandfather was a sailor too. He didn't watch a lot of the old day racing. He didn't go out on these pleasure boats and watch because he was a non-drinker. I guess he probably didn't approve of what went on in some of these boats, but he was a good sailor too.
No, I didn't know much about sailing. My kids knew even less. And my son, one of my sons, without asking or anything else, simply took this Flying Scot out with a couple of his friends who had never sailed either. And by the time they got back to the harbor, it was kind of windy, and they couldn't handle this boat, and they ended up smashing into another boat out there and punching a hole in the side of it.
Well, I think the nice thing about Lake Winnebago, it has enough room to do that. A lot of the smaller lakes really they do not have the room. The lake is too small to have multiple races going on at the same time, you know.
Sailing is a club activity, not a yacht club. It is not a group of people that has a building where you hold dances and dinners and you have to pay thousands of dollars to belong in that. And very inexpensive, and you do it because you love it and you want to be with friends that enjoy it too.
The real feeling that sailing is a so-called life sport, and you can participate at many different levels. You can have the fantasy of going out and winning the America's Cup, maybe, to all sorts of other challenges that you want to chase.